So, we are back for yet another episode of Let's Switch Gears, a very special Halloween edition, spooky episode of Let's
Ooh.
Switch Gears. And this episode, we have Astrologer Shadonis. That's how you pronounce it, right?
Yeah, Shadonis. Thank you
Okay.
so much for
So,
having me.
yay, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I've really been wanting to speak with you for a while now.
No way.
Um, because this was kind of like my way of getting to like pick your brain. Um, so I think I first came across your profile. I follow this Atlanta-based female director, Nina Lee, and
Yes.
she's
Nina's
always,
a really
yeah,
good
she's
friend of mine.
always talking about you and giving you high praises. So that's how I initially found out about you a while back. But I really love that you brought astrocartography to my attention because I had no idea what that was prior to finding your profile.
Mhm.
So, could you tell the people a little about yourself and also a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, well, I'm Shadonis. I call myself an astrologer, but I'm many things.
Hmm.
I feel like astrology has been part of my life forever. I'm originally from New Orleans, so it's never been
Mm,
taboo to get into the woo-woo stuff for me. I see
yeah,
all of it as a language, and so I've been able to create a platform just really from my art and from my jewelry line and all the things I've done over the years. But as of late, it seems that astrocartography is what's been pulling everyone to me. So it's
hmm,
actually a sector of astrology, and it's understanding your birth chart in relation to the Earth. So why is it that we have different connections in different parts of the planet, and why do we feel different ways? Why do we feel called? It explains all of that, and it's evergreen information. It's just really good to have.
yeah. I think a lot of people know like the basics of astrology, especially
Mhm.
now with social media. Everybody is familiar with like birth charts and stuff. I don't think people really know how in depth it can go.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were from New Orleans. I was
Yeah.
actually on your Twitter a couple of days ago, or I think it was probably yesterday or something. And you mentioned something about somebody saying you don't have a New Orleans accent.
Right.
So I would not have guessed that you were from New Orleans because I just expect everybody from New Orleans to sound like Wayne.
Yeah. Right. I know. It's so funny too. When people hear me for a while or they're around me when I'm comfortable, they're like, no, you don't have the accent, but you have the cadence. So I'll
Hmm.
like say certain things in like a way. But I moved
Mm.
around tons when I was a kid. Like I was just there my entire family's there. So I was never
Okay.
away from New Orleans for long. And I was always back and forth. My parents moved a lot. And then we moved back, and then I moved back as an adult. So my whole family's
Mm.
still there, but it
Okay.
comes out a little bit
A little bit when you mad, maybe.
when I'm mad, when I'm comfortable, and then certain words I still have it. But yeah, for the
Yeah.
most part.
I visited New Orleans for the first time last summer for Essence
Nice.
Fest,
How was it?
and it was hot
Yeah.
as hell.
Yes.
Okay. And it's not like
Essence.
a regular heat. It's like a wet heat. It's
Yeah, it's like a
so
smothering.
yes, to the point where it's like you breathe it in, it's everywhere. But I love New Orleans. It was nothing but good vibes. I knew the city was a good city because when I was there for Essence Fest, I ended up losing my wallet
Oh
at the
no.
what do you call it? The dome where they have like the
Okay, yeah.
concerts.
Hmm.
I ended up losing my wallet. And I live in Atlanta. So I'm used to thinking like, I'm like, okay, if this is anything like
Um,
Atlanta, I'm not getting that wallet back. And I kind of gave up, but my friend kept insisting, like, just file a police report, see if they find it. So I'm like, okay. Filed a
mhm.
police report. I ended up leaving the next day. A couple days later, I got an email from the people at the dome, and they're like, "Hey, Chantel, we found your wallet."
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, I have to go back because that means that the people are good people. Because I feel like a lot of other cities, that would not have happened.
I
So I feel like
mean,
it's something special about that city.
hey, I will
Yeah.
take that. We will take that. I'll just say no comment, but we'll take that.
Yeah. And the
um,
other day, I actually went to go visit Salem. I did like a
nice.
solo trip to Salem. Have you
That's
ever been?
interesting. No, I was gonna say, how is
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
It's very nice. I mean, it's very popular around this time of year, obviously, because Halloween, but it's like
Yeah.
a super small town. It's really like a Halloween town,
Got it.
literally.
Yeah.
So everywhere is like nearby, so everywhere is walkable and everybody decorates their houses and all the
Very
businesses
cool.
decorate. So yeah, very, very nice. But I had a friend ask me about my time there and they were like, did you feel like a spiritual connection to that place? Because you know how they say some cities have a very thin veil between the physical and the spiritual.
Hmm.
And I was like, I didn't really feel that in Salem, but I did feel it in New Orleans.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely one of them. There's no city like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that where like your interest for, I guess, astrology stemmed from, like growing up in New Orleans?
I guess you could say that. Like I grew up very religious. I have a huge family that are full of women and they're extremely spiritual. So it's just it never was taboo to talk about really anything spiritual or any faith.
Mm-hmm.
And even just like my lineage traces back to like Haiti and like Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like I have a lot of like ties even spiritually. So it's never been like, oh, that's, I can't talk about that. Like it's never been
It's
like
always
that for me.
been,
So yeah.
yeah.
So like having aunts, read guides for filth and just all that.
Yeah.
It's been my life.
So your family's been like, or should I say maybe your parents have been pretty supportive of like your career path, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think my parents are just always supportive of whatever I do. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
very like I'll do what I want type of kid and person like growing up, so they're
Mm-hmm.
used to it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's gonna go
So,
this way either
however,
way.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Hmm.
So how long have you been studying, I guess, astrology?
So it feels like I've been studying over at least 15 years. Professionally,
Mm.
however, I didn't start like doing it for other people until a bit like 10 years ago. And astrocartography fell upon my lap about 7 years ago. And I was taken aback by how I was able to tie in my own personal experiences. And I didn't even offer it to my clients for a good 2 years because I was just so focused on studying it and perfecting
Hmm.
my own understanding of it. But once I actually did open it to the public and I offered it to clients, like it was just a can of worms. And I'm just always like finding something new, hearing different stories from people all over the world. And it just ended up being a compiled list of just all this information. So it's really
Mm.
exciting because although astrology has always been a part of like my walk and everything spiritual, it's just never been hard for me to kind of figure out. This was fun. This was like, it's something that I could apply. And then now it's just something that's connected me to like everyone else that's experienced traveling and just connection to the world.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What was like your first real experience with it where you kind of started to understand what it meant?
So it's actually funny because when you're in a session, when someone initially finds out about their astrophotography, you're able to look at all of your experiences in hindsight. So lucky enough, like I said, I grew up pretty much everywhere, like moved around a lot, traveled a
Hmm.
lot, always just was on the go. So I was able to look in hindsight at a lot of different locations and how they have impacted me. So like my accent, I lived in California when I was a kid because my parents went to live there for a while. So just that
Okay.
small time, that 1 year, like when I was 5, came back to New Orleans, they were like, she's not even her accent's gone, like all those little things. Then moving to DC and then we moved back to New Orleans and I moved back to Atlanta. So I was able to see how different places affected me in hindsight. And then even as an adult, what really like started the whole like deep dive was my time in Egypt. I could not believe the
Mm.
reset, the change. Like it was literally just the energy I had there. I had never traveled somewhere and had that experience. So when I got back, I didn't even know about astrophotography at that exact moment, but it found me maybe like a year later. And I tied
Hmm.
in everything from my chart to what I would experience in Egypt, and it was right on the money. And that's
Hmm.
when the obsession began. Like I just couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Could you get in, I mean, if you're open to it, could you get into a little bit about your experience in Egypt? Like what were
Yeah.
you,
So
yeah.
what really stuck out the most was just like how it was a reset for me when I became like a mother. It was my first year as a mom. So I was there with my
Mm.
dad, my grandmother. We spent like a month there. And when I got back, I just had like a whole new like view on life. I wanted to change the way I eat. I wanted to like literally change everything about my life. I
Mm.
moved cross country, moved to San Francisco,
I love San
I
Francisco.
mean, it just was a real revamp. I became clear. It was just like an epiphany, right? And
Hmm.
so that experience alone just shifted my entire existence. And so after that,
Yeah.
I had less fear about what I was drawn to do. I was just more in tune with my path. Like, and so it's so funny too now, speaking to so many people who have been to that specific energy, everyone says the same thing about that energy. Like there, it's a restart, it's like an epiphany, and that's what it was for me. So
Mm. So could you explain like so astrocartography has different lines, basically.
yes. Yeah.
There are lines that are considered to be beneficial, and then lines are considered to be not very beneficial. So for you,
Mm-hmm.
that would, I mean, I'm assuming it was on along a beneficial line, maybe.
Mm-hmm. It was.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
you were, how old are you now?
I'm 33.
Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
how old were you when you went to Egypt?
I was 24.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, because I was gonna say like that, I feel like the energy that you're describing,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that would essentially be the energy of like what I imagine to be a Saturn return.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least in my mind, I'm hoping that's what my Saturn return is going to be like. I'm 28, about to be
Yeah.
29 in January. So I'm
Yeah.
like slowly but surely entering it. For the people that know a Saturn return, well, you probably know more than me. Would you like to explain a brief explanation of
Yeah,
what your Saturn
absolutely.
return
And
is?
that
Yeah.
actually kicks off a really good point about like transits when we get into how everything is positioned now in relation to our birth chart, which is a screenshot of that exact moment in time we were born. So when we get
Hmm.
into transits, which is when we see different patterns of planets cycling in the same position in the sky, that's when we get into returns. So solar returns, when the sun meets the same point it was at the time when you were born, we
Hmm.
call those birthdays.
Yeah.
And then we get Venus returns. Every planet has a return. So Saturn return every 27 years. We hear a rotation of Saturn. And so around this time period in our lives is typically when we reach this maturation of understanding life and understanding karma, understanding time. And it's just an evolution in our mindset and in our world. So this
Hmm.
happens when we're approaching 30 and then again when we're approaching 60. So typically you have 2 to 3 Saturn returns in life.
Hmm. Every 30
But
years,
that
yeah.
first
If
one
you're
is
lucky.
really
Yeah.
exactly if you're blessed and lucky. But
Yeah.
the very first one is very pivotal because you're really changing from that young adult phase into like, your 30s, which is a huge transition period, just in general. It's a
Hmm.
lot of things happening. But definitely your relationship with time changes for sure. And all the things that you've worked for or all the karma you've kind of piled up kind of becomes open and clear at that time too.
Hmm.
Like everything you've worked for, everything you haven't worked for, you know what I mean? You can't
Yeah.
like run away from it. It's like I always say Saturn is like it's no bull, like it's just straightforward
Very
energy.
strict. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's often compared to like a father or, like a stern father. A lot of people
exactly.
compare it to, yeah.
Or authority.
Yeah, an authoritative
Mm-hmm.
figure. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that kind of reminds me of, so I kind of want to talk about astrology and pop culture. I feel
Yeah.
like there's been a really big boom now with
Yeah.
astrology on social media. And I feel like it's mainly because of TikTok. But I feel like I've always seen like astrologers a lot on Twitter. But
Yes.
now with I guess the rise of TikTok, I'm seeing more and more social media astrologers. And I wonder, does that ever, because I know you say you've been doing this for 15 years, right?
Yeah.
So that's a pretty long time. That was way before TikTok's time for sure. Do you ever feel like how do you feel about this newfound attention that astrology has been getting? Because some of it is good, it teaches people like me and it opens our eyes to certain things. But it also some of it is not so great. Especially when you have people like tarot readers or psychics, people that incorporate astrology into their work. Sometimes they could give it a bad name. So like
Yeah.
how do you feel about that? And has
It's
it
so many.
affected your work personally, like your career?
Yeah, well, I would have to say astrology, just anything dealing with, I guess, around intuition, around things that aren't fact to some people. It's just always going to stir emotion, you know. And
Yeah.
I think too, collectively, people are just trying to figure out their path. People are trying
Hmm.
to find who they are. And although I feel it is a helpful tool, and I emphasize the word tool because it really is just a tool,
Hmm.
I think that with anything, there's going to be just the scale of, you know, is this balanced or is it not?
Yeah.
And with so much information, just with anything, we can all get lost in it. And I think discernment is just the key with anything, especially spiritual. And I think with astrology becoming so popular now, it's nothing new under the sun. We're
Yeah.
just becoming more comfortable with exchanging information about it.
Hmm.
And we're getting comfortable with challenging each other. We're getting comfortable with just a lot of just ideals that people were once hiding. So now people are just becoming more open and honest, and a little bit too honest, I think, with themselves. But I think for me, I don't think it's a bad thing that more people are learning astrology. I think that it's about developing discernment. I think it's
Yes.
really, even with me, with my teachings, I think for me, it's about teaching the basics. You know, it's about getting to the root of who you are without anything, and then reaching out and seeing what resonates. You know,
Hmm.
that's how I look into everything, even for me, because I think information, no matter what kind of information you're learning or you're receiving, it's about discernment. Um,
Yeah.
I I also think too, with just as an astrology culture, other astrologers, it's just different ages, it's different forms of study, it's different types of astrology, and it'll never be something that you really just. I think it takes a person willing to do the study. It's nothing you're going to get overnight,
Yeah.
and it's so much respect that I have for it that I think if you if it doesn't resonate, you just won't. It just won't. You know, I think yeah,
Yeah, no, I
it's
definitely I feel like listen, like everybody just wants something to believe
mm-hmm.
in, okay?
Yeah.
And I don't want to compare it to religion, but you know how some people go to the
Mm-hmm.
Bible when they're going
Mm-hmm.
through things and they need something to help them, bring them back down to earth or to help
Yeah.
them go through whatever they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
That is like astrology is that thing for a lot of people. Um, but like you said, it's just a tool. It's not, or like an aid. It's not like something that you should be super dependent on. It's not like the end all
Mm-hmm.
be all. Like you said, you should
Mm-hmm.
still have discernment and
Mm-hmm.
you should still have a mind of your own, but it's there to help guide you, like you
Yeah,
said. Yeah.
exactly. But it's and that's the. I feel like that's what everyone is battling. Something to. Am I into this too much? You know, am I? It's literally so much more than just your sun sign, and just
Hmm.
it's just deeper than that. So when it comes to social media, right? We have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have Twitter. All of these different mediums, they pinpoint different age groups. And I think what all of us are fighting right now spiritually is understanding our walk and not feeling so confined. And this can come up with religion, this can come up with all types of teachings. But I find that the reason why it's resonating with the younger generation is because they feel like they can do their own research. There's no one telling them what to see and what to look into and what to learn. And for my experience over the last 15 years, like I've been on social media since Tag, since like literally I was on like the first few apps and platforms. So
Yeah.
I've seen astrology go from just forums on the internet where you're able to kind of see other people put in their input and kind of like what resembles and what happens now, but it was a little more curtailed, more secretive, maybe, I guess. And then I
Hmm.
think back then too, it was pitted against religion. And
I think sometimes it still is.
it definitely still is. And I'm one of those people, I think for me, the way I grew up, it's just such a unique thing. It's nothing I had to battle. Like, there's nothing I have to defend. Like, but I still do believe, you know, it's like, no, I
Yeah.
don't have to do that because I understand the vastness of just spirituality and how every part of the planet and every religion, every, you know, part of the world has a different way of belief. And I don't know, I just never, I think for now, I'm excited about people being open to it, but again, that discernment is just so key. And that's, I guess, going back to what I said previously, it's just discernment is just so key with everything. I
Hmm.
make For me, my intention is to make the experience fun. It's also to lead you back to self. I feel like I'm always anti cult. I hate things that, okay, you have to wean me in for me to understand. Like,
Yeah.
I have a very, very special religion. I'm sorry, very, very special relationship with just religion of love. Like people who care about other people. I feel like that is like the anchor. It's like people who
Hmm.
aren't searching for power, people who are just here to lead and just like you do the rest. Like here guide and here you go. You continue. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who it's definitely something that's misunderstood.
Definitely.
And I think people that don't understand it, it's very
Hmm.
easy for them to judge and be like, well, I know there was like a point in time where astrology was associated with like Satanism, and people are like, oh,
Yeah.
well, like, oh, well, if you believe in
Yeah.
that stuff, then you can't believe in God, or you can't be a Christian or a Catholic or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a really important point to make. It's like spirituality, your spirit or your whatever religion you claim, or just your spirituality in general, has nothing to do with those are two completely separate things that can
Hmm.
intertwine, but
Hmm.
your spirituality and astrology, what you study, are two completely different things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you don't believe in God.
Right.
And even if you don't, it's fine. I feel like we can all just be a little less judgy. People get very weird about religion and stuff like that. So I just feel
Yeah.
like just let
And
people
it's
do what
and
they
it's
want.
deep. It gets
Yeah.
deep. And sometimes I wish we would just ask ourselves why. Why do we think why do we think it's so separate? Why do we not
Yeah.
think of it as a language, if anything?
I don't know if it's I mean, I don't want to say it's a Western thing because I've
Hmm.
only grew up here, so this is all I really know.
Yeah,
But I don't know. I feel like it could be a Western thing.
it
They're
is.
very like strict over here about stuff like that. I mean, it's ingrained in us from when we are children, and we every morning when we get to school, we got to put our hand over our chest and do the Pledge of Allegiance. Like religion is ingrained in us, God is ingrained in us. So
Yeah,
anything that's remotely different from that
right.
is automatically a no-no.
Exactly. It makes you wonder. I always say, if anything, if you can ask questions, it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, exactly. I was watching a podcast the other day.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if you keep up with like RuPaul's Drag Race, or I don't know if you're a fan or not, but
I'm
um,
aware of
uh,
it. I have watched maybe
okay,
one
yeah.
episode or two.
So there's a drag queen. Her name is Katya, and she
Hmm.
has a podcast with Trixie Mattel. And they had a guest on the show, Jinx Monsoon, who's also another drag queen. And she said that her issue with she doesn't claim a religion at all.
Right.
And she said that her issue with religion is that you are told from a very young age, this is what it is,
Hmm.
and you don't question it. And a big part of growing up and growing into your own person is asking those questions, because
Yeah.
that's the only way to learn.
Yeah.
And if you don't learn, you're never going to evolve into the person you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
So I see both sides. I
Yeah.
see why some people just aren't the biggest fans of religion, but overall, I just feel like there has to be there has to be some kind of shift culturally when it
Mhm.
comes to talking about religion. There has to be a shift because I don't know. It's always so much tension around it.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely is a
Yeah.
lot of tension. And I think we've been tricked to think that all of it's separate. And
Hmm.
maybe the future looks like us learning how it all intersects again together, and what
Yeah.
was kind of removed and tweaked and put together for
Hmm.
power.
Yeah.
But it's just it's human nature to
Yeah.
find a way to dominate and to find a way to create like a system. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's just the product. We're just a product of it.
Yeah. How do you feel about like the skepticism around astrology? People who say it's not real.
Yeah.
Or like scientists who say, it can't be scientifically proven,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like, how do you feel about that?
I take it with a grain of salt. Like, if anything, I'm just like, dang, it's like whenever you meet someone that doesn't have an imagination, you kind of just feel
Mm.
not that you feel bad for them, but you feel a little bit like, oh man, they don't get it.
I wonder
So
why you use that word, imagination.
well, really, because I think the world is more magical than we're kind of taught and led to believe. And I think that because of that, it clouds a lot of imagination. It steals a lot of people's like inner joy. It's like sometimes you ever feel like you have to fight for your inner child. You have to fight
Hmm.
for your freedom. You have to fight for the things that feel good for you. And
Yeah.
that's a constant battle. Like everyone feels that, I think. And when you do introduce something that it's like, well, maybe it's like the person that's just always positive. You're kind of like, shut up.
Yeah.
It's that I think that's what people feel when they think of like astrology and they think of things around it. They're like, shut up.
Yeah.
But that it is just like, oh man, it's probably a teenager that's just too cool to dive in. I don't
I
really
know.
think it is.
Yeah. I think
I'm
some
not mad at them
people,
for hating it or thinking it's
yeah,
dumb, or I'm just like, oh man, that's
it's
for
plenty
them.
of things that I think is dumb. So,
Right,
hey, it is what it
exactly. Like,
is.
yeah, it might not be your thing, and
Yeah.
also it's like the way it's done too. Like, we can agree to disagree. It's not a
Hmm.
big deal.
I think what really does bother me about it, though, is the fact that people say, well, it's not scientifically proven, so therefore it
Hmm.
cannot be true.
Ah,
And, it's just very ironic because I'm like, I mean, COVID was scientifically proven, and that wasn't enough to get people to get on board. So,
right.
I mean, do people really care about science, or is it just something deeper than that?
It's deeper.
It's deeper. It has to be a deeper bias because it can't just be
Yeah.
science.
And it also it takes a very smart person to understand and to study it, and it takes dedication. It's something that you're not going to
Mhm.
get overnight. So if someone thinks that they can just say it, I mean, so they can just read about it, like, oh yeah, that's stupid. I don't. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of celebrities have been very vocal about their admiration for astrology.
Hmm.
Off the top of my head, I going back to what we were talking about earlier with the Saturn return.
Hmm.
Ariana Grande has a song on her latest album called Saturn Returns Interlude.
Yeah,
And it's have you heard it?
I've heard it. And did you see the interview she had with Penn Bradley?
I
I
didn't
think.
watch it, but
I,
I think they talked about it. Yeah.
yeah, beautiful. He did it.
Yeah.
I'll actually send you the link. It was gorgeous how he explained Saturn. But yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Him and Andrew Garfield are two
Hmm.
actors I feel like have really good way with words and
Yes.
emotions.
Yes.
Um, are there any like celebrity charts that are like a favorite of yours, or celebrities with like certain placements that
Hmm.
you really like?
Hmm. I like celebrities that have um like a huge tie to where they're from. Like I love Rihanna's chart because literally the girl could wear a trash bag and look amazing, and her first
Hmm.
house shows it. Like she's a Pisces, but then it shows like the dynamic of like Aries energy and like how she's spicy, but also like delicate and has like the whimsical air of like a Pisces, but you feel the fire in her lyrics and her presence.
Hmm.
All of those play into like traits I like to see in people. I also like to see placements that show them tied to like travel because a lot of celebrities do travel. So I like to see how each position or where they've toured and where it like benefited the most, where they
Mm.
have like more traction. I love working with people that just travel in general. So that's
Yeah.
if you have ninth house placements, Sagittarius placements, you're automatically probably my bestie. Because you love to eat from like the experiences that the world can give you. So I
Hmm.
love people, and not just like musicians, but just people, notable people that have like impacted others like in a large way. Um, People who have like paved a way in some kind of way, like they have a lot of leadership traits. Love to just study charts like that because it's something that
Hmm.
I admire.
When it comes to celebrities that maybe they kind of just blew up overnight
Hmm.
and they've been shoved into the spotlight now because everybody's obsessed with them and maybe they're having a really hard time like navigating
Hmm.
everyone having eyes on them because they're just not used to it. What
Right.
kind of placements do you think would describe a person like that? Because I mean, there's
Mhm.
obviously a reason that they blew up,
Yeah.
but it makes you wonder, like, were they really meant to? Because they're having such a
Mhm.
hard time acclimating to
Adjusting.
it. Yeah, adjusting to it.
Yeah. I think definitely there are some ordained patterns. It's not like everybody can't be famous because then that would like
Yeah.
go against fame. But I think that there are some people that have the traits to become famous, and it also is about destiny. There's that magical glue, the essence of God, really is what I call it, that is orchestrating all these pieces together. So there's that time and place they maybe had to be, or that
Mm,
person they had to meet. All of that plays into destiny. So it's
yeah.
like it's just the same thing. Like so many people have talents, and all of us are here to do the work. It's just the level, and I think the idea of fame is also changing. Like I think, are accustomed to fame being just a person just with millions and millions and millions of people obsessed with them. But you can see with Pluto going into Aquarius, we'll see this collectively that fame will have a completely different definition, and
Yeah.
how we really deem people worthy of even our attention is going to change. Like what caught our attention 10 years ago is not catching our
Isn't
attention now.
gonna exactly. Yeah.
And
And
it
I
and
think
it's so many windows in time and transits. Like there's periods in time you can study astrology not just specific to you, but just like collective, like, oh, this is a really good window for me to like push something forward, or this is a really good window for me to retreat. This is a
mhm,
time, the eclipse seasons, like you can see it all affecting everyone collectively. Like
yeah.
it's just we realize we're everything and nothing at the same time through understanding these patterns. So it's like we're special, and yeah, fame is great and things can happen to make us famous, but nothing lasts forever. And it's
Mm.
really about your impact. And
Oh,
there
okay.
are windows of time that can create fame, and there are windows of time that can help us understand like how to maybe expand, our reach to people. But all of that it's just it's so many different like little pieces to a
Mhm.
person's journey, to how they deal with
Yeah.
fame, and then the periods of fame that they deal with, and maybe the personal things that you're dealing with outside of the world knowing that you have to then go out. And it's illnesses that come into people's lives, through people they love, and their career could be going absolutely amazing, but that's impacting how they're dealing with it. So it's so
Mhm.
many facets that come into play. They're human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you believe that charts can predict, I guess you could say, downfalls like that or illnesses or stuff like that?
I think everything is definitely predictable. A
Mhm.
chart can definitely pinpoint pretty much a lot. It can pretty much pinpoint anything. But it takes
Mhm.
a good astrologer. It takes someone that studied the chart. It takes someone with skill. And I do think it's an intuition thing too. A lot of times when people get a really good knack for something, or they'll see it clearly in the patterns, like, but astrology is just studying patterns. So if you catch them long enough, you know when to spot them again. So you can see one coming up.
'Cause
And you
it's
can
all cyclical, so everything comes back
Mhm,
around, yeah.
exactly, and literally everything has a chart. Our chart from us starting this call, your chart from your birth, your chart from the day I got my
Interesting.
cat. Like, I literally doc pretty much everything because everything, has a starting and ending.
Yeah.
Mhm,
I never thought of it like that. I know, like,
mhm,
countries can have charts or places can have charts, but
mhm.
it never occurred to me, like, this call probably
Yeah,
means
there's a
something.
there's a sector of astrology called electional astrology. So there's
Oh,
electional astrologers that literally their main focus is to find the perfect dates for things, and that's usually what a lot of people hire. If you want to find the perfect date for a launch of an event, of a wedding, of just to begin something, to create a business, um,
oh,
yeah,
okay.
to start a show, like, yeah, no, electional astrologers are that deal. Like, they're really, really helpful when you're trying to have intention with planning things.
Is that something you've studied or
Absolutely. It's definitely
okay.
something I've studied. I actually launch a lot of things I do with my jewelry from the day I launch it. I
Okay, I
go by
see.
the days of the week. I go by the time, there's time, like you can literally do things by the
That I've
time of day.
seen, yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried even with, like, posting content on social media, I try different
Mhm.
times to see what works or yeah,
Yeah, even like
definitely.
changing your hair and like different times of,
Hmm.
like being visible to the public, like definitely transits around your 10th house, your ascendant. Like there's so many ways you can elect the perfect time for something. And even fertility, there's fertility astrology too. So
Oh,
people
yes, yeah.
use that to conceive.
Kendrick Lamar just released this interview that he did with SZA, where
Mm-hmm.
SZA was interviewing him and she was asking him about masculinity and femininity and how he said he's recently learned how to really tap into his more feminine side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then there was like this viral tweet about someone saying they love how Rihanna has been able to be more feminine with ASAP and she's very
Mm-hmm.
touchy and she's very feely. Some people got upset because they're like, what do you mean? It's Rihanna. Of course she's feminine. But I want to know what your idea of the divine feminine and
Mm-hmm.
the divine masculine is to you.
To
And
me,
why do you
oh,
think
wow.
it's so important that we find that balance between the two?
Yeah. Well, first, I think we definitely have to find the balance within. And I think it definitely does start with like studying things like your birth chart, because we do sometimes carry certain energies that we have to kind of balance off. Like, obviously, a person with tons of Libra, like feminine traits like Libra, you're going to have kind of like a harder time with masculine energy. So,
Mhm.
balancing in that within yourself, also paying attention to how your Venus is positioned, how you give and take love, also, Pluto. I think Pluto has a big part of understanding how you deal with power dynamics. And that's the main thing when it comes with the balance between the masculine and feminine. I think it's just the balance because you have to know both energies and you just have to balance them at all times. And I think when you find that in another person, it's just that both people are balanced.
Mhm.
I think that when I look at ASAP, I see a feminine and masculine person. And when I look at Rihanna, I
I
see a
do
feminine and
too.
masculine person. And they're
Exactly.
working together because they're already balanced. But I
Exactly.
don't I never felt like it was about you being 100% feminine and then you're finding a 100% masculine man or
Mhm.
however that works. Like
Yeah.
I never saw it like that.
Yeah. How would
Mhm.
you define a feminine trait? Like, what would you consider feminine traits?
The feminine is, that curvy creative energy, like the
Mhm.
flow. And then also it's the receiving energy. So it's receptive and it creates.
And
And then the
then,
masculine
yeah.
is straight, so it's forward and it directs.
Okay.
So
Because I think when
so imagine
people,
like a pretty fluffy thing going and then something guarding it as it's doing that.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Mhm.
I think when people hear feminine and masculine, they immediately start thinking um more like physical attributes or even like um feminine is more emotional and
Mhm.
masculine is more logical, stuff
Right,
like that.
right. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Very black
"No."
and white. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I guess depending on what you're talking about, depending on the context, yes, it could mean those things, but that's not
Mhm.
all it means. Are
Uh,
there any celebrities you feel like might have an astrologer, like a resident astrologer that they go to?
oh,
Or
absolutely.
does the name start with B and end with A?
Wait.
Beyonce!
Oh, oh. You know what was crazy? When I think about Beyonce, I think about a person that is doing the studying herself. She's a
Really?
Mercurial. Yeah, she's a Mercurial. So she's like Virgos and Geminis, like again, like just on a general sense. Like we are really big with information. We love to learn. We love
That's
like
what
the
Kendrick was saying because
meticulous
he's a Gemini.
pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Mercurials love those small little pieces. Like give them to us, give it all. So
Yeah.
anything that can be broken down, like a science like astrology, I'm sorry, like something like astrology, is definitely something that a Mercury would be attracted to. So I could see her, like way back when, like she had this song Signs. Like I could definitely
Yeah.
see her. Like I'm sure she's hired like people. I'm sure she's done the work herself. Like even for me, it's like I feel like it's not about having someone even on payroll. Sometimes we just need someone to spark the study ourselves, and then we go down the rabbit hole ourselves. So she definitely
Mhm.
seems like the type of person that studies. Like when she came out with the self-titled, I was like, okay, no, she definitely studies spirituality, not just even traditional, but like it seems like she's really soaking some information in. So
Yeah.
I could say now, I think she probably would be her own astrologer.
Really?
Yeah, I think
Do you
you could
think she
definitely.
Do you think she's a witch?
What is a witch?
I
Like
guess
a
it depends
spiritual
on
woman?
how you. I mean, I guess it depends on what you define as a witch. I think obviously throughout history, witches have
Hmm.
had, a very negative connotation.
Right.
But I think she gives some witchy vibes. Like, I think she
Yeah.
probably does rituals from time to time and lights some candles. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, her bloodline, I wouldn't put it past her. Like a lot of the things we see, even in religion, like Catholicism, like the lighting of the candles, that definitely comes from African religion.
Hmm.
Like spending time with the elements, like, you know, conjuring spirits, like all of that was learned from somewhere. So I definitely feel like if you've gone down the rabbit hole enough, yeah, you know that
Yeah.
there are some things that that are beyond under the physical understanding. So I
Hmm.
definitely feel like she gives to me like a very open and receptive person. She's definitely tapped into her feminine. She's definitely tapped into the masculine. So
Hmm.
I think I've seen it was like a letter she wrote, and there was something about her saying like, I don't care if your sun is squaring your moon or something, if I don't care what planets are squaring your moon or something like that.
I gotta
Yeah,
go
like
find that.
yeah, no, Beyonce is definitely into it. Like
She's
I for
involved.
sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah,
Do
and
you
I think
do you think that SZA was right about life being better on Saturn?
that is so cute.
Because I don't think so.
I mean,
But
I wouldn't bet that one. I mean, honestly, if you're a Saturnian, maybe, but I can barely stand a full moon in Capricorn. So I can barely
yeah,
handle that. So I don't think I could handle a day on Saturn.
so I'm a Capricorn sun, and then I have 4 planets in Aquarius.
Oh wow, yeah, you're
So,
definitely Saturnian. Actually, I'm wearing a new Saturn piece that I haven't launched it
mm,
yet, but I will soon.
yeah, I
It's
have
a
these
Saturn.
little Saturn earrings. I definitely have like a love-hate relationship with it at this point, but I'm just trying to. I realize that when you try to fight it is
Right.
when shit goes wrong. It's a
Yep.
lot easier to just go with it, and whatever happens, happens.
And Saturnians, you guys learn eventually just you have to do the right thing. It always
I know we
it's just
are. Ugh. I was talking to my friend yesterday, and I was like, I could never be like a scammer
right.
because I'm
Yep.
gonna get caught.
Yeah.
Like, like
Saturnians, it's just your
we
conscience.
can't get
It
away
just
with
wouldn't.
anything. Oh God. And if we do
Yeah.
get away with it, it's temporary. That shit is coming right back.
Very temporary.
Mm-mm.
Very
Yeah.
temporary. And
So
then
we
you guys can
definitely
learn. You guys know commitment. I think that's honorable too. Your
really.
relationship with commitment and working towards something.
I think the air in me makes that
Mm-hmm.
hard for me. Makes committing hard
Mm.
because
Mm.
I sometimes I don't want structure. Sometimes I just want to go with the flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and sometimes, yeah, sometimes I don't want routine. Sometimes I get tired of doing the same shit all the time.
You say your moon
Um,
is in Libra?
yeah, moon and
Oh yeah,
rising,
that
yeah.
so that'll make
Yeah.
things
It's like a
yeah.
constant battle.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Even with like my career, it's like I'm constantly like, do I want to do this or do I want to do something else? So it's kind of like a never
Yeah.
ending battle. But yeah, I'm hoping my Saturn return will clear that up. Hopefully.
I
Hopefully.
mean, I feel like with Libra energy, you're always gonna like weigh both options. You might want to do more than one thing.
Hmm.
You might even just already just have multiple talents. It's just about deciding. And deciding is hard for
Yeah.
Libra moons and
Oh yeah, very
Libra placement.
indecisive.
Yeah.
My mom is a Libra. I also think
Hmm.
it's very interesting when children share placements with their parents.
It usually
Like,
happens too. Yep.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So my mom is a Libra, and I'm constantly having to deal with hearing her say,
Where's your moon?
"Should I
Do you know where your
Libra?"
moon is? No, where? Like what house? Do you know the house? I'll probably have to.
It's in my first house.
Oh, okay. So you're really
Yes.
close to your mom.
I yeah.
It's like I always say moon
We're
in the
constantly
first.
butting heads because I feel like we're
Mm-hmm.
too much alike.
Mm-hmm. Moon in the first
So
is usually like your mom had like a heavy influence on you.
she did. She was
Mm-hmm.
a single mom, so yeah, she did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have moon in the first too.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Halloween.
Okay. Ah, I
Are
love Halloween.
you Okay, so you do love Halloween. Okay.
Hmm.
Do you still like dress up?
Oh
I
yeah, I
love a
was
costume party.
Sailor Moon the other year. Last year I was in Tokyo, so I ended up being like this
Ooh.
like schoolgirl.
Okay.
We try to look for look for actual uniforms and stuff out there if we can find any that were cute enough. But
Um,
yeah, I love Halloween.
yeah. How was Tokyo? I've always wanted to go.
Oh, I love Tokyo. I went
Yeah.
twice just this year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody says they have a good time when they go there.
it's really fun.
Um, yeah, I'm going to a costume party on Thursday, and I'm going as Flavor Flav.
Oh, that's fun.
So
Are you gonna get the chain?
I'm waiting on
He
my
was.
clock in the mail right now.
Oh my god.
Okay.
I didn't realize like his was even when I watched the show when people were debating. I mean, uh, competing for his love, or whatever. I didn't even know
Yeah.
his real background in hip hop. Like I had no idea until I was an adult.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's why you got
He's
a
an
show.
OG. Yep. He really is. He's one of the OGs of hip
Yeah,
hop and of reality television.
yeah,
I hope
definitely.
they're
He definitely was one of the blueprints of just like the wildest things that people will watch
dating
and
shows.
be
Yep.
entertained by. Yeah.
Astrologically, do you think that Halloween being a time associated with, transformation and like I was
Hmm.
talking about earlier, like a really thin veil between the physical and the spiritual world,
Hmm.
do you think that holds any astrological significance?
It does. It actually
Mm,
does. I mean, before we get into like the signs, and we actually have to think about, the winter solstice, like the actual degree and access that all these planets are on right now, and how it does change with the seasons, and even how the Earth is on its axis and how it's positioned. And I think even in ancient times, because we didn't always call these months what we call them now, and we definitely had different types of calendars and just all different types of alignment. So I think,
mhm.
like I said, we are I wouldn't say we're under a spell, but there are many spells at play here. And so there are things that are associated with certain times of the year because of, yeah, it's just certain energies, tie into
Mhm.
them, to certain dates, certain windows. So it's so funny because Scorpio season, it's ruled by Pluto and it's about the underworld. It's about
Mhm.
the things that we normally don't pay attention to.
See, yeah.
So it is intentional for these dates to kind of be in alignment with that energy. Yeah. And it's so many types of rituals that we do. I mean, from Easter, like all the like ties to the seasons are always tied to all these holidays. And it's for a reason.
Yeah.
Like even the new year, it's definitely not in January. And we can see that by looking at the earth. Like, why would the
Yeah.
first and beginning of the year be in the dead winter? That never made sense. And
Yeah.
innately, as a human, it doesn't make sense.
It
But
doesn't,
we're
yeah.
still going with it. Like, it's
Mhm.
like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah. Technically it starts, what, during Aries season?
Well, it depends
The
on, what culture. Like some say in Aries season, obviously that's the astrological new year.
mhm.
But some even say in September with the month of harvest, September. And it, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
And not November, because with Thanksgiving, well, I guess Thanksgiving, the dates are different for, because I know, like, Canada has a different date for Thanksgiving. I think their
Hmm.
Thanksgiving is in September, actually. I think their
Hmm.
Thanksgiving is in September, so that makes sense.
And you even go by like, how we are the only country that does the daylight savings and everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why?
They don't do that everywhere. So it's like, because
I don't understand.
because it creates energy. Like it creates any manipulation to your schedule. Imagine your own schedule. So imagine collectively, you tell a whole country, "Hey, we're going an hour back."
Yeah, and we
That's
just, like,
going.
go along with it?
That creates confusion. Yeah, and if you do it
That's
for
a spell.
hundreds of years, yeah, it sounds like a
Yeah.
spell to me, right? Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
like you say this, you say this, said this type of stuff years ago. It's like, oh, they're woo woo or they're too, but you really, it's like, can you deny it at this
No, we are definitely
point?
under a spell for sure. I absolutely
Right.
believe that.
I mean, from the
Um,
foods to everything, you can see it.
yeah, it is, yeah. Everything we
Mhm.
consume, very true. I was doing some research on some serial killers. because
Hmm.
I'm very much in my, tis the season, so I've been watching a lot of horror films.
Oh, nice.
And I
Mutable.
saw that, I believe, what is that, Pisces, Cancer, Sag?
It's a Pisces, Sagittarius, Virgo,
Mm.
Gemini.
Okay. Virgo and Gemini, I can absolutely see because Virgos are considered like super organized.
Uh-huh.
But they said that Pisces, Cancer, Sagittarius, and Scorpio account for almost 40% of serial killers.
Ah. So that's all the water signs.
That no, Sag, it's one
Oh,
fire
Sag.
sign,
Okay. Uh-huh.
which I
Hmm.
believe because Sagittarius are unhinged.
Hmm.
But you said, mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a Sag moon and rising, so
Oh, okay.
I can attest.
Okay.
I'm a Virgo
Um,
though, but
yeah. It did say that the most victims by killers, Capricorn. We have
ah,
the most victims.
wow, never heard that one.
Very
Right.
interesting.
I
Um,
know that mutables because mutable energy is like the shapeshifter energy. So Sagittarius,
mm,
Virgo, Gemini, and Pisces, because we're mutable energy, we're not this like very, it's like moody, changeable, like a
oh,
different
crazy.
person, crazy pretty much. So mutable energy is literally like you can kill somebody the next day, maybe act like
Go
it
on
didn't
about your
happen.
business.
Yeah. So that's
Mm,
why serial killers usually are mutable because they can like deal with it on
interesting.
their conscience. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's but you know what? That is interesting that Capricorns do have the most victims because like you
But now that
said,
I think about it though, caps are
but we don't get
predictable,
a what
very
do you mean?
predictable. Capricorns are very predictable. They're like Taurus. Taurus
Because
people are predictable.
I've been under the maybe delusional assumption that I was not predictable. I always thought like, oh, they never know my next
When
move.
I think about murder or like premeditated murder, I'm thinking of like the type of, I would imagine that they need someone that they can like, it's
Oh,
usually
because okay, I
yeah, like they
see.
have to, maybe that's why I'm thinking. I'm like, well, maybe it would be Earth sign because Earth signs usually are a little more like, oh, I know where she's going to be today.
And you know why we probably have the most victims? We probably get caught the most.
Mm,
So they're
mm.
able to count how many people we kill. Well, I should stop saying we. I'm not killing anybody, but but they can count how many people Capricorns kill
Yeah,
because 10 times out of 10 we're probably going to get caught. so
yeah.
so now that we are winding down towards the end of the episode, usually I do a segment
Mhm.
called What Grinds Your Gears? And it's
Uh,
where we both talk about something that is grinding our gears at the moment. Doesn't have to be related to astrology or anything. It could literally be anything.
yeah.
Um,
People that take advantage of people is like but the main thing that is grinding my ears. I think now is just like a theme that I keep kind of witnessing
mhm.
in the collective. Everybody just kind of spinning for self, and I wish it was
Yeah,
more. I wish it was just more love toward women and children. That's what's grinding my gears.
yeah,
I wish that America did something about all this, all the things that it's done to the people of color in this country. I think that's always been something that's grinding my gears.
absolutely.
But yeah, I think that's yeah, people
Yeah,
just taking advantage.
we are not protecting children at all, not the way
Mhm.
we should be. And it's really unfortunate because they are quite literally the
The
future.
future.
So if we're not taking care of the future, then I think we're fucked. you know? Um I'm so used to women being mistreated poorly, but I just cannot stand when someone mistreats a child.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's like obviously mistreating women is not, okay, but at least we're adults and we've kind of grown to understand like these are just the ways of society. But a
they,
child is
yeah,
innocent. They don't
yeah.
know. They're still learning. So it definitely makes you sad when you think about the state of the world and the direction we're heading. I don't know where we're going. I'm terrified to find out where, though.
Yeah. And it just, as a mother, I have an 8-year-old. So as a mother, it
Yeah,
makes me think of his future, makes me think of like, honestly, sometimes I cry because I'm just like,
yeah,
I know it's a big bad world out there, and I know what it took for me, like things my parents don't even know about, to like just kind of stay afloat and just stay sane. And I think about like him, and I'm like, damn, like I barely made it. Like, are you gonna be
yeah,
okay? Like, I'm gonna
yeah.
be okay. So
Ooh,
I definitely like just wish a better world for them. Like that's my goal. Like I love that even in work that I do, like it assists with people that do have children. And I think the more people learn themselves or learn themselves, learn those that they love, learn more about them, like we can build better homes, we can have better understanding of each other. And I think that is the best part of this type of work, is that I do get to like kind of assist people in kind of becoming more clear in their journey and their
hmm,
walk that is going to directly impact their children and whoever is around them.
yeah,
And I think that it is healing. I think the more that we all just kind of dive deep and realize, like, okay, how can we do better? So the kids, like, I think about their future. I think about how they're their own collective and how their numbers are decreasing because we really can't afford to raise them anymore. Really, you see the decline in birth rate.
yeah,
So I think the future of just children having certain freedoms, I think that's the future. Like they're going to become more independent and just
yeah,
like because the guardians aren't doing what the guardians are supposed to do. So
yeah.
maybe they have to figure out for themselves, and the information is there. These kids are different. They learn
Very
so quick.
different.
I have
Very
most of my
different.
clientele, like I would say, like about 60% of my clientele is Generation Z and below.
Really?
I have a lot of people obviously within my age group, and I have clients older than me. Like I have clients that are in their seven. I've spoken to pretty much every genre of people, but these kids, like they know their charts, like they know, like they see it like how it should be seen. Like, oh, this is something good information just to have. Like, why would I not
Hmm.
listen, or why would I not keep this in my pocket? So, like I had a call with someone. They're like, "Yeah, I'm trying to rectify my Pluto in my fourth. I know this caused this," and they
Yes.
put it on like armor, and
They're very
that
aware of their strengths and
I
yeah,
admire because that
yeah,
will take them far. And so the generation that my son is in, like, I'm giving him those tools too, but I can only just imagine what that creates as a society. Because eventually
yeah,
the boomers have been in power forever. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like, when does that stop? When does
I know. It seems like they never die.
that's like
They never die.
in Generation X, it's like literally they've been in power for 2 generations.
I don't know. I don't know. What really makes me scared is that when they do die or when they step down from those
Hmm.
positions, which is very rare, they
Hmm.
just pass it down to a family,
Right.
their kids. And then the cycle repeats because they're teaching their kids the things that, they believe is true. And the things that they believe is true is most of the time very harmful.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we break this cycle? I- Something that grinds my gears.
Oh yeah, I
Hmm.
was gonna say what grinds your
I know. I completely we ran off on a tangent.
rudeness. I
Um,
know all Libra placements, we hate rude people, so I know that's one of
I
them.
definitely hate rude people. Um, I'm just really big on manners, but I also come from like a West Indian background, so that's just
Hmm.
they don't play about
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Um, I do think another reason why I'm really worried for these kids, they don't have manners. I don't think they have the manners that we have, and I'm
They
not talking
don't.
about like the toxic ideas like, oh, you must respect your elder no matter what they do to you, and that's stupid, because respect is obviously earned and not given.
Right.
But obviously, you should respect your elder, but there are exceptions.
Yeah.
But I do think for the most part these new kids, they don't really understand, or maybe it's just we're just from a different generation, but it's like coming into the room and seeing people, especially people you don't know, and
Hmm.
not speaking. It's like
Hmm.
stuff like
It's a
that. I feel
disconnect.
like it
It's a
is.
disconnect. And the children also don't trust us anymore. That's what it is.
They really don't because they think we're fucking stupid. They think we're
Hmm.
old. They already
Hmm.
calling us 30-year-olds grannies on Twitter
Hmm.
every damn day. They calling us old, saying we washed up hags and we don't know what we talking about. And I'm like, damn, I'm only 30.
Yeah.
But they don't respect
No
us.
respect, no.
And I wonder if it's because they don't have a respect for aging.
Maybe. I think that they do have remorse, like their mortality isn't in question at all. Like they don't really see it at all.
Yeah.
And the whole lioness thing, I hate that. But yeah, that's their whole position too. Like it's just like die today, live
Oh yeah, that's
tomorrow.
another thing. The acronyms or whatever
I'm
they
over
I
it.
can't
I
do it.
can't keep
Yeah,
up.
I
I
can't keep
literally
up.
had a teacher had to tell me. I said, "Excuse me." I thought now we doing too much.
Yeah, because I'm used to like TTYL,
Right.
BTW. I'm like,
Apparently
let's keep
that's
it
dated.
simple,
That's
very
dated.
dated. Asked, do you have any parting words for the
Yeah,
people?
no, definitely. I would love to say that again, thank you for having me. It was a great
Mhm.
discussion. I love like all your random questions. I thought it was just about astrocartography, so this was a delightful surprise that you asked all about astrology because
Yeah.
a couple questions I never really kind of thought to even ask myself. But
Mhm.
I want to just leave with just people, everyone, just kind of tap into where you are, and look into the things that aren't common. Look into things that inspire you. Look into your chart. And then also, if you're
Yeah.
curious about astrocartography, obviously you can book me. But I definitely I send off with that. Just kind of tune in with yourself, like find information that interests you, that resonates with you. And yeah, that's what I leave with you guys.